You're listening to This Week in Property. Stay current, relevant and up to date in the world of property investment. Learn from the UK's leading property professionals and grow your property business.
Hello and welcome to This Week in Property. I'm your host Richard Swan, and you are going to love today's show because I have not brought you one guest, not two, but three guests. Oh yes, you're spoiled rotten today, dear listeners. Now, it touches upon the theme that we are running with Property Chat around the UK, and we actually jump across the Irish Sea to Ireland, which of course has the northern part of it within the UK and the Republic, which is outside of the UK. So a fascinating area to touch upon. The market, the conditions, the background, the peculiarities of the specific areas involved, the opportunities, the deals, the strategies, the tactics, etc., etc. All the stuff that you enjoy listening to. And the three gentlemen that I have on the show certainly deliver that for you, that's for sure. Now, full disclosure, I know all three gents rather well through working with them on various different PMW courses. For example, Brian Farrell, one of the guests, worked with Brian in the Platinum training programme and also in the Land training programme that we have with PMW. The other two gentlemen, Fran Gaffney and Gary Logue, also excelled in the Property Protege training programme that we have with the company. So know them very well and they're doing some fantastic things. It's really great, the differences, their backgrounds, the different experiences, different opinions, different ideas, different strategies and tactics and so on. But of course, as you would expect, there's loads of different ways that such successful people overlap with each other. The mindset, the approach, the ability to look, assess, analyse, the opportunities that they see, the way that they try to work with people, the ethics and the integrity around that, how they view investors, customers, etc. And that'll really come out when you hear them talking about things. A lot of passion there, a lot of enthusiasm, a lot of excitement. They work well individually, they work well with each other on different projects and brainstorming and so on. And we delve into everything. As you would expect with This Week in Property, the conversation goes here, there and everywhere. We go high level, big picture with, Ireland as a whole, the culture behind property and how it's viewed within that country. And then low level, lots of low level details about the different strategies and tactics that the guys are using and working on and focusing on. Lots of snippets, insights, golden nuggets, takeaways that you as a listener, as someone maybe in the property game or thinking about getting into property investment, you'll be able to take away things there. Outsourcing, how you can best deploy your time better. And in fact, I don't want to give too much of it away. There's so many little snippets and ideas to get around obstacles that you think you have in your road, and the different ways that you should look at how to work with other people, how to go after your own dreams, your own targets, and indeed, and this will be one little thing just to hover above you, your own bigger picture, your legacy, your longer term goals and dreams and ambitions that you really want to build. It's fantastic. I'm buzzing. I've had a fantastic chat with these guys. So, without further ado, not one, not two, but three fantastic guests for you. Brian Farrell, Fran Gaffney and Gary Logue. Righty-ho, here's a challenge for us this week, listeners. So, Brian, hello and welcome to the show.
Hello, Richard. Glad to be here.
Gary, hello and welcome to the show.
Hi, Richard. How's things?
And Fran, hello and welcome to This Week in Property.
Hello, and hello, everybody.
Fantastic. Yes, dear listeners, not just one guest, but three hot shots. Fantastic. This is going to be a wee challenge for us, but I'm quite sure we're going to manage it. Some interesting people that we have for you, some very varied backgrounds, experiences, opinions, ideas, all sorts of things, but one common theme that I wanted to chat to these three superstars about. As you know, listeners, on This Week in Property, we've got a few different themes that we like to delve into, different perspectives when it comes to experts that we're working with. But another theme is property chat around the UK. Now, not specifically the UK here. I want to talk about Ireland, and we want to delve into the country of Ireland, the Republic, and of course we have Northern Ireland, which is part of the UK. We might go there as well. And again, it's just to touch upon that area, get to speak to people who are working in those areas, and it's going to be interesting for you because you can hear what are they finding, what are they facing, what's their opinions, how can they see it long term, etc. Do they have specific ideas, opinions and thoughts on the market, on demand, on the culture in that area, etc. And that's something that's going to help you as investors listening in, or even people who have not entered the property world as such, but you're on the cusp of it, you're doing your investigation and you want to know what exactly is it like there and what kind of things should I expect, etc. So, first off, let's jump into Gary, first of all. Gary, from your own perspective, when it comes to Ireland, not too long there, Irish wife, been there for roughly about 9 months, so that's the kind of fresh perspective, but when it comes to property, construction and so on, that's something you've got a big, long background in, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it, Richard. 9 months I've been in Ireland now, married to my Irish wife. I've been in construction for about 13 years now. Since the age of 16, I went into construction. Was originally from the East End of Glasgow. But yeah, like I say, been here for the last 9 months, so I've got a bit of a fresh perspective on it, if you know what I mean. I've not been in the market here for a long time, so sometimes it's a bit easier to see things from that perspective, from the outside looking in, so to speak.
And where are we talking about geography-wise? So put ourselves in the mind of listeners outside, elsewhere in the UK. Whereabouts are you if we talk about the map of north and south?
Luckily enough for me, I'm pretty much slap bang between Belfast and Dublin, so it's quite handy. Right. With both sort of jurisdictions there, you know, in Northern Ireland and in the south in the Republic. So yeah, that's where I'm based at the minute. Most of my work at the minute is based in the south and around the Dublin area. Right.
Okay. Excellent. And Fran, if I turn to yourself, what if you had to summarise your background, your career, where you've been in business, etc., up to this point, and what you're doing in property, how would you tell the Fran story? What's your background?
My background is mostly sales. And I remember my first job was at 14 years old and was selling tickets to tourists to ice rinks. Because I used to live in a small town, which is a tourist town. So winter was dead, but in summer everybody was working, including teenagers, and that's how I got into sales. And then moving to more as a tourist in tourist town, I moved into kind of a tourist jobs and started to work with Hertz and then British Airways and then American Airlines, and then in American Airlines I started to go into the IT. That was back in '96, I think. American Airlines was expanding their business model into selling their own systems, internal systems developed by themselves to travel agents, airports, other airlines, and that's how I got into IT. And from IT, I moved into Ireland, and I got into more specific, which is a very specific niche, which is all reporting and business intelligence. And from there, I just pretty much start to look into what to do next, but not for an employer, just for myself. As I said, this IT is well paid, is evolving very rapidly, though it's always for somebody else. So I say, well, I'm going to develop all the skills of sales, marketing, etc., and something that actually I can not accumulate is the wrong word. I can develop the same capacity, but for my next generation, for my children. But my children are not that children anymore because it's 22 and 18. Though I wanted to show them that there's a path that is beyond just being a good employee or very well employed. And that is my own challenge, let's say, in somehow. And because they are old enough, I say I also can be selfish in somehow and develop something that actually have a keen interest, which is property. I built my own house in Argentina, where I'm coming from originally. I built my own house here in Ireland. Recently, last year, we did another extension. and it's like a sleeping interest that now and again come up, and then I feel the passion. I feel alive when I'm doing anything to do with property, and that's why it was a natural thing to go into this. The funny story was what my daughter was doing this vocational test for going where she's going to go to university, and actually I said I'm going to do that thing myself just to see where I go with this. And architecture and engineer were the two 80-90% possibilities in terms of if I have to pick a university again, would be engineer or architecture. Have nothing to do with sales or marketing or anything else. So I say, okay, probably I'm quite aligned with what I'm doing. And the interesting thing is actually many people looking to say, oh, what I would do with all my experience, what I would do if I will be 19 or 21 again. And I say, well, architect or engineer, like a Brian, like a construction in terms of a structural engineering or designing engineering. And my interesting thing is actually today I feel like 18, 21 again. I'm alive, and actually I have all these years of experience. Yeah. And I say, okay, so I have is the fueling, the enthusiasm, the energy that I get every day is impressive, because I say I have all this drive and I have all this experience. So actually there's no way that I can ignore it. So I have to go all into this, and that's what I'm doing.
Tremendous. Do you think that passion, that interest in the thing, in the property, is something that the listeners should consider? You know, if they are wanting to look into getting into property and property investing and so on, should they have an evaluation of themselves to see, is that your area? Is it do you think it's very important for their success?
Yes, I do believe that is a very good ingredient to have into the mix. The reason why is because you start to look into the money for the money itself. And you start to look beyond that. So you start to look into say, where is beyond the money, literally, and this is contagious for both parts. For investors, it's contagious for the sellers. You are really connecting people, helping people, and it's kind of a selfish. There's no selfishness there. You're doing it because you have a passion on enthusiasm in doing something that you want to find a solution. You want to understand where is the person, where they are. For example, in the case of the sellers, are in any kind of a stress, and the investor that they want to do and invest. So then you say, okay, so it goes beyond the money itself. It goes into say, okay, money now is a medium rather than the aim, and getting that solution and that outcome. When you see, okay, where you're going to see the person in 5 year time or 2 years time, when they go into an investor remorse because they say, oh, what I've done, this is a bad thing that I've done. That things are tackled right now. They don't have that anymore, and I had to reject many investors because of that, because they were just for the money. I say, well, I understand that you want to do an investment, you want a return, you want something for yourself, but it's not everything for everybody. And that's why I'm more handpicking who are my investors, and it went through several of them, and actually some of them were very good prospects. Though I didn't feel that was the right fit, because I'm looking also in the other side, which is the seller. So what they're looking for, what they want, and sometimes investors just want a quick transaction, all for me. And I say, well, but that might bounce back in a very bad way in the future. So I prefer to say, I go with somebody that actually might be willing to take 2 or 3 points less, let's say, but actually the risk of any bounce back in a bad way is minimized to the bare minimum. And this is because I've been in perhaps myself in similar situations when I build in my houses in that situation where not knowing these little nuances put me myself in that case in the other side as a consumer with a very, very bad taste in my mouth, because I say, what this guy's doing? So this is not we are not working together here. He just want to save money in whatever plastering, and I say, but I want a good plastering. I want something that actually is, and this is one example, but or an attic conversion. We've done an attic conversion, and I spend more time with the carpenter than actually the project manager, because the guy understood what I wanted. And the project manager was not happy at all, because he thought that I was working the carpenter on my favor. At the end, it ended up being more expensive to me than actually the original budget. But there was an understanding of what we wanted. And I think that this is a passion that translates also when you are working with other people, investors and sellers. So it's looking for something that is beyond just the money.
Very interesting. Very interesting. Yeah, the investors thing, I definitely want to tie more into that with you, because I think that's something the listeners will get a lot of benefit from. But before we do that, let's talk to our third chap on the call, Mr. Brian Farrell, who dialed in today from sunny Glasgow at the moment, but his accent gives it away. He ain't no Glasgow boy. Brian, whereabouts are you? Where do you locate yourself? And what on earth has brought you to this stage, if you like, to where you are in property?
Hi Richard, yes, as I mentioned, I'm over in Glasgow these few days, just working on a few deals, a few developments, and catching up with folk that we do business with. I'm, as you can tell with the accent, I am from Ireland, West Coast, grew up in Ireland, actually spent a few years living in Scotland. I studied civil engineering, moved across to Edinburgh to finish my studies, and then ended up working in Glasgow and across the UK, worked on some landmark buildings in Glasgow city centre, and then ended up progressing into civil structural design role, spent a couple of years doing that, then ended up moving back to Dublin and working for developers and managing projects on their behalf. So since then, I've always had an interest. So basically I was most after leaving the construction of the commercial buildings and residential buildings in Glasgow, I moved into renewable energy. So it's designing schemes, hydro, wind, onshore wind, and the civil infrastructure that goes around that. Then I've been managing onshore wind farms across the UK and Ireland for developers. I've always had an interest in property, and I wanted to combine my experience, because a lot of the experience I have is tangible to the property industry, especially developments. I also wanted to combine that into something I can grow myself and help others in a different way to what I do. And
at the moment, is it inside Dublin itself you're located in, or just outside? Or where are we at the moment you're living?
So living in Dublin City.
It's Dublin City, right.
Yeah. So we're focused on quite a lot of sites in and around the city. It's a hot topic right now. And also working on projects around Glasgow and looking at a couple in the greater, just outside Glasgow area as well.
Fantastic. Right, okay. So there you go. We've had a wee touch in with each of the three gentlemen. So let's jump into things. Now, Ireland. This is fascinating, because what I've found is when we jump into areas around the country, there might be wee specific things like, over here in this city, because of X, Y, and Z, because of this big train line transformation thing, such and such is happening with the city. Brilliant, that's fascinating. Over here, this specific borough in London has some political changes in it, and X, Y, and Z. All of a sudden, this has now happened in property. And it's great to really dig into that and understand what's going on. And it helps the listeners as well, whether they want to work in that area, develop in that area, invest in that area. But Ireland, if I had to, the kind of the labels, the connotations, the things that pop up as soon as someone says to me, Ireland, property, it could be things like the tiger economy, the crash, but there's a very big cultural thing for Ireland when it comes to things like property. And Gary, we were speaking recently, you were mentioning a specific book called The Field by John B. Keane, and it kind of touches upon this thing, doesn't it? How would you explain that cultural connection and how people view property, etc., within Ireland itself?
Yeah, it was quite refreshing for me when I moved over here, you know, getting into the property industry here. In the UK, obviously, property is a big thing, but in Ireland, it's a bit different. It is a bit of a cultural thing. You know, people, they've got a bit of a more of an entrepreneurial mentality, I feel, here. They're sort of brought up from a young age to be told, you know, get yourself on the ladder. You know, it's good to get land. It's good to build your own home. And, you know, it's a fascinating thing in comparison, you know. So,
right.
That is yeah, it's really driven into people from a young age here, you know.
Mm-hmm. And Brian, would you agree with that? I mean, you've done that. You've done the childhood thing. You've been within the country, the culture, etc. Is that something you always saw around you?
Absolutely. Everybody likes to own their own patch of grass here in Ireland, and for sure, it's yeah. There's a strong connection to building and creating your own thing, and a lot of people like to, you know, build their own houses. That's not always possible in the cities, but definitely in the countryside.
Right, okay. And Fran, you're very much the man who has built your own thing and extended it so on. What were you going on to say?
Yeah. No, I yesterday, Friday, there was a report that actually Ulster Bank is selling their negative equity. They are selling around 6,000 mortgages. Obviously, this is not for private investors. This goes directly to certain institutions that have that capacity. But what I found extremely interesting, and is highly relevant to what Gary and Brian said, 2,900 of those in arrears mortgages are buy-to-lets. So half of the portfolio are buy-to-lets. So that shows, when I saw that, I said, how many entrepreneurs or people that wanted to get into the business of property actually get at least to the first step, which is a buy-to-let. So, and this is something that they were holding for 10 years. So today is 2018. So I guess that these are the mortgages that were approved back in 2008, before October 2008. When the crash happened. So highly relevant, actually. There's a sense of entrepreneurship, a sense of ownership, and a drive to do things that actually is more or less in one bank. You see that half of the portfolio is in business rather than private residency. And that, I think that actually just that shows in somehow how is the mentality. It's like we want to do things. We want not only for ourselves as a residents, we want to do things as a business too. And I think that is amazing, because one of the main things that actually shocked me when I came to Ireland is the lack of advertising everywhere. You don't see many things advertising like, well, I've been traveling everywhere through my previous life in tourism, but there's not advertising except the usual channels that would be TV or radio or a newspaper, but it's not with this kind of exaggeration that you would see in America in terms with property, when the mortgages were thrown to you or to your face. And I haven't seen that here in Ireland, and I'm here since 2003. So I enjoyed, let's say, part of the rise to the before the crash. But this report really shocked me. I said, really, wow, that's actually, there was a lot of entrepreneurship in the people here to buy to let.
Yeah, that is interesting. Fascinating numbers as well. You triggered two of the words I wanted to chat to you about today, Fran, actually. Negative equity. And it is a big thing that you've really found there in Ireland. How does that then influence how you, as an investor, as a developer, as whatever, have to then deal with finding deals or structuring something? Because it's obviously going to have a big impact on how you're facing each opportunity.
Yeah. Negative equity, the Central Statistic Office here in Ireland is showing in around 36% of the properties are in negative equity, and I do hope that I have that number right. Excuse me if I made a mistake with that particular figure, but actually probably close to 1/3 is in negative equity, and the interesting thing is actually that big chunk is based on those last 2 years, 2007, 2008, and the institutions now are realizing that actually they need to do something about that, because the past 10 years was nothing. And I think the Ulster Bank, I think, is the first bank that is going and say, okay, we have this portfolio. What we're going to do, we're going to sell it to large investors with a very long-term view of what they're going to do with this portfolio.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of down the tier down, if you may, where we go and source for properties, there is two things. One is people that have certain negative equity that actually can be worked, meaning that actually the percentage is not beyond the 9% of the negative equity. That is workable in somehow.
Mm-hmm.
When they're beyond that point, and this is back to what I said earlier, I just pretty much advise them where they need to go. There are two national agencies where they deal with negative equity in Ireland. So where they provide help, they provide advice, they help them to reopen the conversation with the bank or the mortgage provider. And this is part of where you say, well, I can do things here, but actually, is that convenient for the seller? I don't think it's convenient for the seller, because at the end, you're abusing a situation of high intellectual and financial stress. Intellectual, I say, because actually some of these people are in arrears, believe it or not, for 3 or 4 years. And they're still living in their house, but they're still in arrears. And I don't want to dwell a lot in the situation, which it doesn't look very good. But there is a chance to provide some guidance to them and say, okay, if you have certain amount of negative equity, we can do something. Mm-hmm. If you are beyond that amount or that percentage, then here's the places where you can go and get some relief, or at least some guidance what to do next. Yeah. And I think that's part of the integrity that one has in terms of the enthusiasm and the passion, where you don't abuse the people that actually disadvantage. So you say, no, you have a possibility here to get a way out, and even if it's against probably some of my own interest, it's better for you to go to this official office or government office or assigned or appointed office of the government to do and explain what is your situation and how you can fix it.
Yeah.
It is quite delicate in somehow, because actually you see how people got fooled by their own selves in somehow, because it was so easy to access to loans, to 100% loans. Like people will go with their pay slip and we get 100% loan, knowing that they couldn't afford that. Mm-hmm. But that's a different story. But actually today I think that they are paying that consequences, and yeah, well, people learn somebody told me once, you learn by love or you learn by pain. And I think that this is time a lot of love. and explain and say, okay, you got into this, now these are the avenues where you can get a solution. At least just to get a relief. And just sometimes making a decision is a physical relief. It's incredible. Just making a mental decision to do something creates a physical relief. And actually giving sometimes externally somebody that goes and say, oh, we can do something for you. And then you say, well, not specifically ourselves, but I can guide you to where you need to talk. And if you do the action today, you might be in a better situation tomorrow. And I think that is the only way that can be treated negative equity, at least in a situation, the very peculiar situation that Ireland is today.
Yeah, and that's exactly what we're trying to understand in these shows, the peculiarities of each different region or city or country or whatever. So that's fantastic, and I love the fact that you're using integrity and ethics in your business and how you're dealing with the customers. That's tremendous to see, because sadly not everyone in the property world would do that. Now, Brian, another man with integrity, let me chat to you. The both guys have mentioned the crash and we touched upon that. How has that affected Ireland, in your opinion? How's it affected the mindset, the approach? How are people looking towards the future, etc.? What's been your view from being inside of that?
I was living in the UK for the majority of the lower times, Richard. But say in the past few years, there's two things at play here. There's obviously the crash and people's concerns for that. There are also the views towards the bank, and then there is with the crash there was a lot of immigration. A lot of people went abroad, myself included, and a lot of those people are coming back now. And there's no houses
really
for them. Yeah,
right.
There's a massive housing crisis in Ireland, in particular around the cities. There isn't enough supply for the demand, so that's pushing prices back up again. The crash, I don't predict markets like that, but I do like to follow the guys that have predicted them in the past, and those guys on the fringes that wouldn't generally be the common people you'd hear all the time in mainstream media. There is most likely another crash coming at some stage down the line. Now, for a while, for the time being, there's a huge demand, so there's still, the prices are staying up there. Property is booming. It's a hot topic at the moment. Right. I think that a lot of people have learned lessons, that their lending terms are different again, but the main things there for me is, being able to make a huge impact on that Dublin market, being able to bring new accommodation to the market, to the people that need it, that being top quality accommodation at prices they can afford. The other thing is to be able to refurbish the older properties that are still there. There are many units there unused, and commercial units. There are businesses closing down all the time, so there are loads of commercial units becoming available, and they can be converted into residential properties too.
Interesting. Okay. Now, Gary, if I can turn to yourself, let's switch to strategies. Lots of ways we can get involved with property and stuff. For yourself, you've explained, obviously, just new to the area, if you like, 9 months and the connection with your wife and stuff. You're going to be focusing on things like sourcing, rent to rent. You've got a kind of cash flow thing to your head. Can you talk about that for the listeners?
Yeah, no problem, Richard. My key focus for the business at the minute is property sourcing. That's what 90% of our business is based around, trying to find good deals for investors in the market at the minute. And obviously, at the minute, the property value is going through the roof in Ireland. It's had, I think, about a 12% increase since last year.
Really?
Yeah.
That's right. So just what Brian was touching upon there, you're seeing that yourself, are you?
Definitely, yeah. Like, just looking at some of the numbers since 2013, I think is something ridiculous, like 74% the increase in value of property, But when you look at that, it's still even more ridiculous. Pre-crash 2007, I think the prices are still about 24% cheaper than they were then. So
right.
Gives you an idea of how big it was here at the time. Be it myself personally, I'm dealing with property sourcing at the minute, but also a bit of a cash flow strategy with rent to rent and stuff like that as well. So that's what I'm looking at the moment. I'm finding that's actually coming off quite well. I'm dealing with quite a few people at the moment, landlords in particular, who already have portfolios in place, that just basically don't really want them anymore, or they're having issues with having the funds there to refurb those properties and those type of things. So we're going in, taking those portfolios off their hands, giving them a guaranteed return every month, and then transforming them into HMOs, serviced accommodation and stuff like that.
Right, okay. Fantastic. See, this is what I love about the show. We can go high level and talk about culture and economies, and then we can delve right down into nitty-gritty things and strategies and tactics and stuff. I love it. And on that note, Fran, if I turn back to yourself, there are people listening in who think you have to have all the money yourself to get into property. You have to save up for donkeys and then get involved. They just don't. They can't get this concept in their heads that you can bring in investors, that you can use other people's money, etc. Now, for yourself, experiences and stuff that you're finding with investors, you're kind of finding that that's just not the case.
Yeah. Well, I give you two profiles that actually I finding, and it's going back to entrepreneurship and desire to own and make business beside people that actually already have day jobs. A group of let's say my portfolio, I call it my database actually of investors are a group of friends in the mid-30s, late 20s, mid-30s, 3 or 4 friends that they say we're going to make a kitty or a pool of money, and we are going to start to invest in 1 property or 2 properties or 3 properties. So that's one kind of people that I'm finding now. The other kind of people that I'm finding that actually are investing is people that actually exited already from other businesses. Right. So they have the pool of money, and they are people that have business experience. So this conversation is different because actually you kind of go and say, oh, don't worry, we're going to buy to let or HMO or something like that. The conversation is more deep because they are not talking about we are going to start to do something. I say, I want to do this. They know exactly what or if not exactly, they have a very good idea what they want to do. And sometimes the things actually, even if they have the time and the money, the interesting thing is that perhaps they don't have all the strategies and all the processes to get where they want. And that's why they're listening to, for example, the likes of Gary or Brian or myself, because they say, okay, you know what you're talking about, you have the time to do it, and you can pull these with the right direction with an outcome. And this interesting thing, the way that I started conversation with this investor is not about how we're going to source the property or what the value is, what will be the outcome first. So the question for the investor is 3 basic questions that I ask always, and say where you're coming from, where you are today, and where you want to go. And this is where you pre-qualify the right person that will work with you, because then or start to qualify, then there's other conversation that it follows. But the main idea is to say, if they don't know where they want to go, then it's very difficult to start to bring somebody together, because then it's like, I don't mind. I had some calls that are quite weird because, well, I don't know, you tell me. And I say, well, I cannot tell you because I'm not in your mind. I know what you want, so I can help to achieve you that faster and more efficiently. But if you don't know what you want, probably we need to talk later in time. When you are more, and the interesting thing is that there's so many possibilities out there that actually we need to kind of lean all the people that is available. And this is the incredible thing. There's a lot of available cash in places where are not the common places, like mortgage lenders or the bank or the usual financial institutions. One of the sources that I'm using to get to investor is LinkedIn. I connecting with people through LinkedIn, and it's amazing because they are looking into get in this entrepreneurship or activities while they are working or they are already exited from their own businesses, and they are willing to do the step. But the most important thing I think is to get the right people is to find out where they want to get, what is their goals or their outcome, and it can be many different things. Some people just want the hands-off approach, where they say, here's a pool of money, I want a return per year, or I would not going to touch this capital for 2, 3, 5 years. I want to make sure that you have a return, and then at the end we have let's say, a true up of the activities or the interest or whatever returns are getting from this capital. Other people want a monthly return or a monthly installment just of the interest of the earnings, and then the capital is still working and working and reworked and reworked. And then you have other investors who are more sophisticated, where that's a different thing, because they are looking into other stuff that is not necessarily have a portfolio. They want to go and to buy buildings, and they want to buy buildings of apartment buildings, where they want to have that in a way that actually the capital is with the asset rather than cash, and get the returns, and from there leverage all that. And some of them, they don't want to refinance, which I found very curious. They say, no, I don't want to refinance anything. I just want to have that building done. We have that in the pool of assets, and then they move into something else. So they diversify in different things, but they don't like the refinancing, which somehow I found quite prudent, given the times that we are today. Yeah. Because refinancing implies a certain risk of getting more. It's a high leverage for a full building. So I understand the strategy. So that's when I say they are more sophisticated. They know what is a leverage. They know what is a refinancing. They know that it might look very enticing, but at certain points they say the strategy is longer than 15 years or 20 years. So don't worry about refinancing now. We're going to do other stuff. And that's quite interesting, because you have let's say the buy and flip or buy to let for one property. It can be residential or something like that, and then you have this completely different conversation where they talk about a strategy between now and 15, 20 years. So your brain have to jump very quickly from one to the other and adapt very quickly to what is the outcome of the investor in this case.
Yeah, what they're looking for.
Exactly, because there's no point to start to, particularly with this kind of conversation where even a small property is 100K, 150K. That might be the salary of somebody for I don't know, for the next 5 years. Yeah. So even a small deal of 150K or 100K is a huge impact in an individual. You can imagine, if you are not talking about a few millions with a building, that's a massive impact. So then again, that interest for what we are doing, how we are doing it, where we want to get, how we are going to structure all this in the way that actually doesn't go south, and we protect against the ups and downs of the market, is very important. And this is, I think, actually part of the passion, where you don't mind to spend an afternoon working all these variables. But I'm not saying spreadsheet these things to death. I'm saying actually having specific strategies where you study where you're going, and eventually which will be the 2 or 3 exits that makes better sense to move on towards the business. And once you have that done, and if the number works, is a deal, that's it. And then you run it with the accounting team, and the accounting team, they say, yeah, go ahead, it's good. Then you go back to investor and say, guys, we have a deal here. Or not a deal, we have a potential deal to your consideration. And this is a conversation. So it's quite interesting how your mind, in a very short period of time, jump from one massive abstract thing, which is a building and their financing process, to one property that worth 150K. But the most important thing is who is in the other side. Is the investor and the seller. Those are the most important things, because these are not congruent in terms of what they are looking for, what is the outcome, etc., etc. Then you're rowing against the current. I don't know if that's the right way to say, but you're rowing. I know you're grinding against the. Yeah, you're against the current. Yeah. Right. And there are so many opportunities out there that what is the point to waste any friction, energy, or time because you are saying, I'm going to do this, I want this deal done that way. There's so much things to do that actually is no point, and it's much easier, much fluent, and you create build a longer relationship with these people when you start to look into what they're looking for and how you can structure the things to satisfy that.
Yeah.
And everybody understand, and it's so much easier, and there's so many things out there that actually can be done that actually is impressive.
Yes, exactly.
Actually, with Gary and Emmett, we meet once already, and we have another meeting scheduled. Bouncing ideas, sharing information. We have with Brian. We met the other last week or 2 weeks ago, and Gary too. And there is no selfishness, as I mentioned earlier. So we are not here to compete to each other, rather to help each other to get where we want.
Exactly. There's no scarcity. There's no, oh no, this is mine. Don't talk. Don't go away. It's very much an opportunity-based thing, and a feeling of abundance. And
exactly. And I think that Paul McFadden mentioned that I listened to several of his podcasts, and he mentioned that actually where your mind is coming from. So where yourself position yourself in your inner thoughts. From a side of scarcity, as you mentioned, or from a side of abundance.
Yes.
And I do believe that actually there is so much abundance everywhere that actually that applies also in property. So, but patient and persistent, I think, is the key for to reap the benefits, if you may.
Yes, totally. That's fantastic.
And that's and I think that mostly that I'm patient and not having immediate success sometimes is what put people off and say, oh, this doesn't work for me, this is not what I'm looking for, or I put that time and that money and actually it's not working. But this, as we are working with assets that can last in the ground, and some of them thousands of years, like you see around the scenery, the castles and the old abbeys, thousands and thousands of years or hundreds of years. So why we have to rush it to do it this quick?
Yeah, totally.
So the perspective of time also is quite important. We want results, obviously. Everybody have targets and want to do the Q1 and the H1 and the year end, etc. But all these engines start to get engaged with people and situations and contact and networking, and then next year is much easier than the following, and actually at the point where the things flows naturally. Obviously having all this idea that where we want to get with the people around us. Actually from the investor side, from the seller side, from ourselves, from our extended network, like myself with Gary and Brian and Emmett and the guys in the UK and yourself, Richard. So this I think that from that side, for me, this is extremely fulfilling. Because that helps to say there's a reason, there's a meaning when I get out of bed every morning, and I can do it again the next day, I can do it the next day and the next day, and so on and so forth, because it doesn't really create a friction internally myself that I say that drag me anywhere, like, oh, do I have to go to work again? Actually, when is Friday? Or it's not Friday anymore for me. It's not Saturday, it's not Sunday. So actually, my wife have to tell me several times. I say, hey, slow down, because it's like I start in the morning, and I sometimes at the end of the day I have to look back into my diary, because I have an alarm every hour to make sure that I make a note of what I do. Sometimes look at the diary and I say, what I've done today, and I see every single hour 3 or 4 lines. It's snippets. There's not the activity itself, but it's just a reminder to myself that I've done this and this, I connected with these people, I've done that, I created this content, etc. And it's very, and then I look back in a month back and I say, it's incredible that I've done this. and I surprise myself sometimes. So it's incredible that sometimes you do things that you say, did I really do that? That's amazing.
Yeah, fantastic. Absolutely. Loads of great insights there. I love that. Brian, just to pull in one of the threads that Fran spoke about there, abundance and opportunity and things that are out there. you're finding a lot of that within the world or the area of land, aren't you? You're getting yourself involved in lots of things when it comes to land development. What can you chat to us about there? Can you give us an idea on some of the kind of deals that are ongoing and stuff?
Absolutely, Richard. There's obviously certain things I can't speak about on some of the land deals, but basically people have been coming to me with land, with opportunities, with different sites. Some people are looking for finance. The others have got a site. They might be struggling with something on it. They're looking to take it further. Some people have just got too much on their plate. They've got another site to look and, can somebody else look after it? On top of that, myself and a few other guys, we're actively looking for, good land in good areas, strategically positioned for, what's coming next and where the site should be. And obviously land is a hot topic. Everybody's looking for it. So we've got sophisticated investors looking to come in on some of the deals. We've got deals that we're looking to, hold on to ourselves. Other ones just to take through planning, either develop it or sell it on again. But as I touched on, it's important. The opportunity really lies in, what you see coming down the line, where you see the good locations to be, where the demand really is, and where that good site is.
Mm-hmm. And does that touch upon the other thing that Fran was explaining there, patience? Do you really need that when it comes to the land part of property?
You sure do. You sure do, Richard, because, patience is one of the biggest attributes you need when it comes to land development and all things in life, really, but especially land. There's just so many variables, so many different things that are out of your control. You may best position yourself and your team and everything around it, but other things just don't come to the fore like you would have liked. But another thing, like Fran said, it's abundance mentality. There are so many opportunities out there. You can't get caught up on the one. Yeah. Because if you do, you're just going to go nowhere. So there are loads of deals out there. Mm-hmm. Anybody you talk to, they know it, they see them, and it's all about really, really, as I said, getting a good team around you and position yourself right to make sure that you can make that project a success.
Mm-hmm. Tremendous. Now, Gary, I'm going to change gears here. Spoke to yourself about some of the strategies, let's call it the kind of the short term, the medium term. Right, we're doing this resource and I'm focusing on this rent to rent stuff, Richard, because cash flow, you get this amount. But bigger picture, longer term, we've had a chat before. You've got some big ideas when it comes to what you're doing and looking way, way, way further down the line. If I mention the word charity, if I mention the word legacy, that kind of thing. What's going on in your head about your future and where you see this going?
Yeah, it sort of tails back into the way the guys were talking there as well. You can't sort of just look at what's happening in front of you. You need to look long term and what you want to make of this down the road. And for me, it's more than just building up a great property business that serves myself and serves my clients and my friends and the guys that we do business with. It's further down the road, my background, I grew up in the East End of Glasgow. It's not, it's nothing like the sunny suburbs of Dublin 4 or anything like that. It's a little bit rough and ready, but I loved it. Wouldn't knock it. It was a great place to grow up. I learned a hell of a lot from that upbringing. And but one thing is, and it all comes down to this in property business. Anything, it all comes down to mindset. It all comes down to your mentality. Yep. And how you see things. And when you grow up in that sort of environment, now obviously I was brought up very well and I didn't have to ask for anything, but when you're brought up around people with a certain mentality, they don't really think of what their actual potential could be. They don't see the fact that they could be more than just, not there's anything wrong with it, but the 9 to 5 and the standard life, you work, you buy a house, you pay the house off, you hand it down to your kids, and then it's your funeral and 5 people show up and there's one person crying, It's, what I want is long-term, hopefully with like-minded people, is to set up a bit of a charity going into areas, into schools, colleges, youth clubs, and helping to teach people about finance and how to manage their money and, how to unleash their actual potential, and see that inside they could be an entrepreneur, they can build something, Mm-hmm. So looking at that, and then it was actually a talk I was at the other night, and a guy really got me thinking. It was at a networking event, and he was talking about how he's really involved in rent to own. So what he's done for years, he's been involved in pubs, clubs, and property, buying and flipping, buy to lets. He's got a massive portfolio, but he's now decided his legacy is to go into rent to own. But now rent to own can be looked at in two different ways. It can be looked at from the perspective of, as an investor, you can make good money out of it. But on the other side of things, rent to own, for the people out there who don't really understand what it is it's basically a type of lease option. You're giving somebody the opportunity to pay the rent every month for a fixed period of time, and then at the end you give them the option to buy that property. But there's different ways of doing it. You could take somebody, look at their situation and look at how they need to build a credit rating to get to that point, to say, listen, in 5 years' time, you can do this. You might think with the income you've got and everything else that you actually can't afford a property. But, that is a possibility. That is a possibility. It's making sure that, you can help people in that way.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Yeah, I love chatting to you guys as well, because it's just because of the way you think. You've got that mindset. You're open. It's the abundance. It's networking. It's collaborating. It's brainstorming. It's this, that, and the other. It's absolutely tremendous. But I want to be respectful of your time. We've had these guys on the podcast for quite a wee while now. Fran, if I jump back to yourself, I was thinking of another way. Always thinking of ways to help the listeners and stuff. And we spoke before about investors and other people's money and stuff. That's great. One of the other common complaints from people, I'd love to get into property, but it's always about time. I can't do that. I can't do my marketing. I've not got time to do such and such because I'm in a full-time job. But again, you've came round with another wee resourceful way of getting around these obstacles. And if I mention the word student, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So, I mean, it's great. You always seem to... We talk about all these subjects in Property Protege, for example, things like outsourcing, time, collaboration, networking, etc. And you really run with them. So what can you tell us there? What's the wee story you have there for us?
That's correct. Yes. Outsourcing is one of my last jobs in the corporate world was to run with the projects of outsourcing and how to set up the project and how to manage the outsourcing company that was doing business on behalf of the main corporation. And interestingly, I'm not going to say that it's my personal idea. It's something that actually I picked up, and that's why, back to what I said, I have the experience now and the drive of a teenager, put it that way. So I say one of the things actually we've done there is employ students but that was more sophisticated, if you may, because those students were in the Erasmus program. I don't know if you've heard of that. It's a network of universities that exchange students around Europe. So we needed languages, a lot of languages for low value, high volume activities. So we connected Erasmus, and they said, geez, we have what language you want, literally. And they flew students for 6 months from different countries. The only thing that we needed to provide is certain facilities and accommodations, etc. So they could work with us. For them, it was a fantastic activity because actually they learned specifically what they were studying for, hands-on in the business. So something actually you get all the theory in your student university, but actually you don't get it until you get the first job. So these guys were extremely qualified not extremely qualified. They were qualified in terms of the theory, but also have an ability after this program with us, compared to other companies that they bring them to bring coffees and do not very meaningful activities. Anyway, so I say, okay, fine. So outsourcing in property. How am I going to outsource in property? Because this is a kind of very specific activity with very specific knowledge. But then I say, well, there's some things that I can bring a student on board and leverage their own studies. So I look into marketing. So I sent an email to university, and I tell you what is the process. I sent an email to a few universities and say, I'm looking, this is my company, this is what I'm doing. I'm looking for a student to have field experience into research in a market area, in an area, and I put and outlined some of the things that I was looking for in terms of the person profile, because you don't want to bring anybody on board that actually doesn't fit the profile of the activities that you're doing. So I wanted somebody that have a very good knowledge of crafting and connecting with people, that it's an outgoing person that doesn't mind to walk around the town, etc. And I say, if any student is interested, we can provide 11 weeks of hands-on on the field activity, and they have 1 day outside, 1 day inside, creating all the stats and the review of what they've done and how to craft it to the next level, etc. And all that was pointing to marketing. More specifically, to have a wide network of shop owners fully aware of what our business is about in the area where we are having our activity. So in that way, I don't need to commit my time to do in around 16 to 20 hours walking around my town, what I would love to do it, but actually I say, but I have all these people that I need to serve first, because we are talking about how to structure deals and how we are going to we're going to move to the next level, etc. But at the same time, I need to source business. So how am I going to do an extended network of people that knows the people that are in the town? And that's the core of the meaning of this exercise. Where I say, who knows better the people in the town and where they are the situation, and how are going to get a greater credibility by leveraging somebody else's knowledge of the other people. So then say, okay, I know Jimmy the Butcher because I buy there all the time. But actually, if Jimmy the Butcher says to Mary, they say, this guy Fran are buying property, so perhaps he can help you. My credibility will boost right away, because actually I'm not an unknown. Beside that, I'm unknown for Mary, but Jimmy is telling something about me.
Yeah.
So that's where the link is coming. And say I like to do it myself, but actually then I have all these guys that actually are demanding my time in structuring and packaging and that kind of stuff. But it doesn't invalidate, or it doesn't prevent me to have a student, and this back again to how we can help people, how we can work together to mutual gains. So this student will go around for 11 weeks, once a week around the town, and then doing all the database analysis and the questions, etc., and fine-tuning what we are telling to people, and also to fine-tune our marketing in Facebook, in LinkedIn, in the other activities that we are doing. And finally, she's going to get a letter of recommendation where say, yes, she performed all these activities that were relevant to her studies, etc., and that will boost her credits or points. I don't remember how it's boost her own performance in university. But moreover, somehow I'm preparing somebody in the future that already knows what I do and how I do it. So eventually she can start her first work with me.
Yeah.
And my company. And this is one of the big things in management, is how you mold your team. Molding means actually they don't come with crazy ideas that we test everything anyway, but they know how you do the things and which is the thinking before the action. And I spent with her pretty much 3 days this week at different times, more than anything else, explaining what is my rationale and which is the aim before even hitting the street. Because there's no point to send somebody with a questionnaire and a script and they don't have a clue what they're doing.
Yeah.
So they need to know why they do it.
Yeah, the intention behind it. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. Why has a meaning? I think that a month ago we spoke about meaning of the things, how the things are meaningful for somebody. And I think I've been very fortunate because actually I crafted that meaning before sending that message to the university. So she pretty much was enticed, if you may, because when she read the spec or the specification of what I was looking for, she could tick her own boxes. So her own values are aligned pretty much with the values that I'm presenting to her, and actually the values that we are transferring to the market. So then there is again this congruency of the things where you say, this is where I'm going, these are the things that I'm doing, how I'm doing it, and why I'm doing it, and why is the meaning of all these things all together. Where we are, and she's aware also of the extended impact of what she's doing. So you're not connecting with the shop owner and doing this and this and the other. What you're doing is actually providing a service or helping people that today perhaps they cannot reach that barrier. Say, should I call this guy? Should I call this guy? Should I send an email? Should I not? And then Jimmy is saying, hey, Mary, you know these guys? Perhaps you need to talk to them. And that barrier also helps the person that today is blocked for, oh, who knows these guys? I don't want to deal with strangers. Yeah. So in somehow, with this is a way that I'm proposing the activity to her and say, or what is called the butterfly effect in somehow. Yep. So where say you don't know the impact of the little action that you have doing what you are doing here. So you imagine all the people under financial stress or emotional stress or pressure or whatever they are today, that they cannot move because they don't have that friendly word for somebody that say, yeah, perhaps you need to trust in this guy and give at least a call to know what it's about. And that's why I bring these students and say outsourcing. I thought that outsourcing would be difficult in property, but then I say, okay, can I rewrap previous experiences in my current activities and to move faster. And outsourcing, I do believe, is pretty much how you can move faster with your ideas. Exactly, that's right. And when you have these things aligned, I think I tell you in 11 weeks how fast we move, but I do believe that will be a Formula One kind of race, because it's amazing how the people start to get involved, and they start to bring their own ideas and their own enthusiasm and their own willingness to help and provide a kind of a service, if you may, and also helping them at the same time in their own definition of what will be the career in the future. So, but she's doing international business and marketing. I don't know, probably she will be the next property tycoon in Europe. Who knows? Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad if that is her career path and I started that would be amazing. Fantastic. I love it. I absolutely love it. So, Brian, we're going to jump back to yourself for the last section. Some brilliant examples and insights and stuff there with Fran and outsourcing, marketing, students and joint collaboration. I love that. And the Erasmus thing, that's interesting actually, because my own teenage daughter here in Scotland, her school has a connection with Barcelona and stuff. It's amazing seeing that coming together. Spoke to Gary as well just before that about the bigger picture and legacy, charities, all that kind of stuff. So you have the last section, my good man. What do you see going forward for Ireland, for property, for the market, for the future? What's your opinions there? What's your thoughts there as you look forward? Where's your crystal ball telling you that things are going to be going? Great question, Richard. As I said earlier, I can't predict the market, but it is very interesting and something I often contemplate. I see, over the next 3 to 5 years, we still need a lot of developments, a lot of houses built. Right. And because of what you mentioned earlier about the demand and there's just no supply, is that what you're saying? Correct, right. Yes. Due to the demand and due to the more people moving back to Ireland and just the way the market is, there need a lot of houses and top quality houses built for all people from all walks of life. And market-wise, you're just going to keep your eye on things. You'll tailor and adapt to whatever comes out, and things like your land develops and so on, they're going to take such a long time anyway that you're just going to keep on top of them. Is that how you can adjust to things? Exactly. We're looking at sites, as I mentioned, that people have. They may not be sure what to do with them. They have commercial units that they may be left empty, or they're not sure what they want to do with them. So we're looking at converting them into residential. There is, anywhere we can offer value to
sites or to units that need it. We're always looking for that. The lost you there, Richard.
Here you go.
What was the last question?
So just going forward, you're seeing good things. You're seeing hope, seeing opportunity, seeing growth. Yep.
Yeah. So as I mentioned, we're looking at different units and sites across. I believe there's a huge window for the next 3 to 5 years to develop and realize a lot of these sites.
Right.
Now's the time to act on them. That's where all the focus is at the moment.
Right.
Is developing these sites and bringing them forward, and helping anybody we can along the way.
Great stuff. Absolutely great stuff. Well, gentlemen, I have had a ball. I've had a ball listening to you and talking with you. It's been fascinating. Loads of great insights, loads of great opinions and experiences and things, and a ton of different ways you've helped the listeners. Really appreciate your time, and you've been very well behaved. You're not talking over each other. It's been easy to manage. So individually, Fran, up in my top left of my screen, thank you for your time today. Really appreciate it.
You're very welcome, and thank you for having us.
Fantastic. And Gary, thank you for sharing your vision, your experiences, and what you have forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Richard. Thank you.
Stuff. And Brian, get yourself out of Glasgow, back over to Ireland, get yourself sorted. There's far too many deals you're working on, but today, thanks a lot for your time.
Thanks very much, Richard. Enjoyed it.
Hi folks, it's Richard here again. I really hope that you enjoyed today's show. Now listen, I've got 2 links to help support you on your property journey, and I want you to write these down when it's safe to do so. You might be driving in your car just now listening to the podcast, and that's fine, but please make sure that you get back to this and write down these links. Okay, are you ready? Got your pen in hand? So the first one, thisweekinproperty.com. Now that's the website for this podcast. On there, make sure you subscribe to the podcast so that you don't miss out. What you can also do on there is catch up on tons and tons of past episodes. There are hours and hours of property related content and some amazing guests with some fantastic insights to help you on your property journey. So that is thisweekinproperty.com. Okay, next link, propertyprotege.com. Now let me spell that one out for you. PROPERTY PROTEGE. That's propertyprotege.com. Now what's it all about? Well, the Property Protege Intensive is designed to give you the lift that you need into the world of property. And if you've already started, if you've already got some experience, then this can help you accelerate your progress even further. The experiences that people have had at Protege and the success that they've achieved afterwards has been life-changing for many people. So go there right now if you're serious about property and if you want to build a highly successful property business. That's propertyprotege.com. So there you go. That's 2 links to some fantastic resources that are going to help you. And listen, talking about help, can you help me to help other people? You see, the more that we can share this podcast, then more people can learn from the fantastic guests that I've been so lucky to talk to. How can you help? Well, it's very simple and very quick. Just a short review on iTunes is going to help make that happen. If you go to thisweekinproperty.com/iTunes, that will guide you to the very place that you will be able to help other people. So thank you. Thanks for doing that, and thanks for listening into the show. And I look forward to bringing another great guest to you in the next show.